For the majority of Bahamians who pay monthly utilities, their reality is you pay or face disconnection. Just recently, though, we witnessed a separate reality for the country's elite, who are given the luxury of running up utility bills courtesy of a do not disconnect list. This unknown list, held by the Bahamas Power and Light Corporation and the Water and Sewage Corporation, became very public when the names were leaked and ended up in the media. Former Prime Minister, the Right Honorable Perry Christie, and leader of the opposition, Philip Brave Davis, say they are unaware of such lists. But why not, many of us asked. In the midst of the uproar about these lists and the hundreds of thousands of uncollected payments, On the Record found out that these lists were really set up for seemingly innocent purpose, which was just abused over the decades. Nevertheless, the monies are owed to these two corporations. Minis administration is saying someone has to pay those bills. Well, tonight we're talking to two members of the administration who hopefully will give us some insight into all of this. The Honorable Desmond Bannister is a Minister of Works and an accomplished attorney, along with Adrian Gibson, Chairman of the Water and Sewage Corporation, a journalist, teacher, attorney, and businessman. We're also going to take a look into the future of these corporations. Do not disconnect. It's all on the record. I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer, and our show begins the other side of this break.
On the Record is brought to you by Alive, the nation's newest and best LTE network.
Good to be alive.
What do you believe?
Do you believe in energy? Do you believe in dreams?
Do you believe in passion?
Do you believe in family?
Do you believe in caring?
Do you believe in freedom?
Do you believe in imagination?
Do you believe in love?
Do you believe in community?
Do you believe in discovering?
Do you believe in music?
Do you believe in yourself?
Do you believe in living?
Believe in best.
Alive. Believe in best.
What are you doing?
Calling the bank to order more checks.
Go to epbahamas.com and order your checks from Executive Printers.
Executive Printers. We're the authority in business and personal check printing in the Bahamas. Come in and see one of our specialists or visit us online at epbahamas.com to design and order your checks today.
10, 9, ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2,
1. Get faster internet speeds for free when you get TV, internet, and phone. Ask for Trio from Rev.
Join the revolution.
Welcome back to On the Record. We are looking into the Do Not Disconnect list at various corporations that most of us are not privileged to be a part of. Vonnie Toot of Our News recently spoke with Paul Maynard. He's the president of the Bahamas Electrical Workers Union, who had some pretty interesting things to say about all of this.
Since the days of the United Bahamian Party, Paul Maynard says government officials have abused an unspoken policy at Bahamas Power and Light, which allowed public officials to keep their lights on even after they failed to pay their power bills. The president of the Bahamas Electrical Workers Union says it's an abuse that needed to stop. However, he questioned whether government officials will really bring an end to this policy.
It's been going on. It's been going on from in the UB time. Well, the PLP kept it, the F&M kept it, so I'm sure F&M ministers stuff abused it through the years. I'm sure PLP ministers stuff, MPs and stuff abused it through the years. It is what it is. I mean, that's just the nature of people. But I'm glad that it stopped, right? It'll never really stop, really, because you know, and I know.
Minister of Public Works and Transport Desmond Bannister revealed that some of the public officials on BPL's special list owe the cash-strapped corporation as much as $50,000. Maynard says he's not surprised.
I knew it was in existence. It was always in existence. But I'm happy that they've now ceased to put it out to pasture.
Why is that?
Because, I mean, you cutting off the old lady in the poor area for $300, and you don't give them the same privilege that you give the other people. Now, I mean, in any country, you know, we are supposed to be equal, but we're never equal.
BPL has issued letters to these individuals to settle their arrears or come to some arrangement to pay off their hefty bills. Former BEC Executive Chairman Leslie Miller has been named among several politicians on that list and insisted it was intended as an act of courtesy to public officials in arrears to save them the embarrassment of having their power supply disconnected for non-payment. However, Maynard says it shouldn't work that way when the average man has his light cut off for a $200 outstanding payment.
I'm happy that, you know, they've decided to discard it, because I think it was abuse. You know, you can't allow abuse to occur, especially how the corporation is money-centric, because we have to pay for fuel.
However, Maynard says politicians aren't the only ones benefiting.
You know, the managers in BC believe they're God. You know, they got this God complex.
It has also been revealed that 40% of BPL customers who were disconnected received power illegally after bribing employees. Maynard says that doesn't surprise him either and called for a metering system to eliminate such an abuse. The Workers' Union president says he hopes public officials on that list have learned an important lesson.
You could sit there for 5 years, for instance, and don't pay your bill, right? But at the end of 5 years, now you got to pay all that, right? It's called into account. They always tell them that, you know, you got to pay. Now, a lot of people run in and they make arrangements and they get it done. But it ain't like you getting away. All you do is delaying the inevitable. So you might as well pay your bill.
Reporting for our News, I'm Vonique Tude.
Maynard says he's not surprised by all of this, indicating that this seemed to have been a practice now for decades. In our upcoming segment, we will be speaking with the Minister of Works, the Honorable Desmond Bannister. Do not disconnect. We will be right back with more on the record.
On the Record is sponsored by BAF Financial. BAF for life.
I'm free to live my life, yeah. Free to be me, yeah. The way I want to be. Doing the things that I want to do.
Yes, I'm living my life. Hey! BAF for life. Yes, I'm living my life. Hey! BAF for life.
For life. BAF has got you covered.
Get in the game with NFL Sunday Ticket from Rev TV. You'll get every game every Sunday afternoon in crystal clear HD. That's over 220 football games for the entire regular season. Plus, NFL Sunday Ticket gives you that died and woke up in football heaven experience when you include NFL Red Zone, a channel dedicated to every scoring play from every game and all your fantasy football teams. Get in the game with NFL Sunday Ticket. Call 601-8992 today.
We making dreams come true. Play with Island Games. We paying more out to you. Don't mind the noise in the market. You getting cash in your pocket. Island Games is spicy and spicy is tradition. So when you play, we putting Bahamians first. Guaranteed to pay. We like them other jokers. We've been here from the start. From the bike to computer. Island Games. We can make your dreams come true. We playing with Island Games.
Welcome back to On the Record. We are discussing privileges, the now forbidden list. My guest for this segment, the Honorable Desmond Bannister. He's the Minister of Works. Mr. Bannister is an attorney who at one point served as Crown Counsel in the Attorney General's office and senior partner at the Law Partnership. He currently represents the Carmichael constituency, a sports enthusiast. He was also once president of the Bahamas Association of Athletic Associations. Minister, welcome to On the Record.
Thanks so much. It's good to be here.
This is your first time, eh?
My first time.
Good,
yes.
good. Not our first time.
If I have some jitters, just
not at all. This is not your first time at the rodeo. So, Minister, let's talk about what has really been dominating headlines lately with these lists that have been in the media and really have been the topic of discussion. These do not disconnect lists. Is this something that is well known in government? This is obviously not your first time in government, your second time in a ministerial cabinet post, but do these lists, have they existed for a period of time? Are you all aware of them as sitting ministers? How does it work?
Quite frankly, I didn't know about these lists until very recently. When we found out about them, we discontinued them immediately. I gave clear instructions that they would be discontinued. And I found out about it in the most unusual way, in that I'm renting some facilities for my community center in Carmichael, and that community center was disconnected. When it was disconnected, I wanted to pay for it immediately because I'm renting and I don't get the bills. And someone asked me whether I wanted to be on this list, which I immediately indicated that I did not want to be on it. I didn't know that it existed, and it ought to have been stopped immediately. Unfortunately, and I gave instructions in writing also. Unfortunately, the list was not stopped. The privileges were not immediately curtailed. And it was not until my new board came in that they acted on those instructions and stopped the privilege. So first of all, you had something happening that I don't think many people understood was happening. I think that people were given a benefit that they may not have asked for, may not in many cases have been interested in. I think you've seen some abuses where some persons may have been interested in having it and may not have paid what they ought to have paid. But by and large, I think that persons who may have, and I use the word benefited advisedly, may not necessarily have been asked to be on this list. Now, the second aspect of that is that I do not condone the releasing of those names. Notwithstanding the fact that persons were given a benefit that they ought not to have been given. I believe that in our society, in modern society, we ought not to be blaming and shaming publicly. We ought to give persons an opportunity to regulate their affairs, to get matters in a proper order. They ought to be given some notice. And if they don't comply with that notice, then they ought to be disconnected. So from my perspective, the whole matter is unsavory. First of all, you shouldn't have a list. If you're giving public service, you're giving public service understanding that there are some benefits, but those benefits are in the regulations. Those benefits are in the legislation, and you know what they are. You're given some courtesies. You're given a car, you're given a driver. Those are the benefits you get. And certain security benefits also. You ought not to be looking for other benefits, as I've seen some politicians expect and get, unfortunately. But also, if you have been inadvertently given those benefits, or if you have been given those benefits and you've taken advantage of them that you should not, then we ought to seek to find a way to do it, to stop them without necessarily seeking to shame people publicly. I know that some people will not agree with me on that because they want to see everything out in the limelight. They want to see whose names are on this list, etc.
Transparency, yes.
But we can have transparency and we can have accountability. without a shaming exercise.
So let me ask you, there's a couple of questions that immediately come up. If you are, I mean, I'm a homeowner, I have my utilities, I know that they come up monthly. I have a pretty good idea of what they are month to month, and so you budget that out. If you are a sitting member or a cabinet minister, etc., you must have known that these bills existed and that you weren't paying.
Yeah, I'm sure that the persons must have known, and there's a lack of responsibility in that respect. I'm not making any excuses for anyone. I want that to be clear. I also want it to be clear that we want everyone to be accountable, and you've used the keyword transparent. So I make no excuses for anyone. People haven't paid the bills, and they've been in huge amounts, huge sums, which I can't understand. I can't understand a bill, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000. I can't understand that someone permitting that to accumulate. So I'm not making any excuses for them. But what I'm saying is that in public policy, there is an aspect of our society that we can operate in a decent manner. We can require people to be accountable, but we don't necessarily have to splash their names and faces on the front pages of newspapers. And I know you guys, you need a story every day.
Well, here then, I guess, is where I'm going with this as well.
Sure.
I guess the blame would have to be placed at someone's feet at some point to have given approval for these lists to exist. And have you been able to sort of pinpoint? Because there's been a lot of, I didn't know, I'm unaware. There's been a lot of that. But sort of who, at the end of the day, would have been responsible for saying, yes, these lists should exist, and let's go ahead?
I'm not interested in the blame because those things have been around for too long. They've been around a long time, probably before I was in public life.
So these have happened happened under consecutive administrations?
Yes.
Okay.
And of different political affiliations. So what I'm concerned about now is that they stop and that there is accountability. And one of the things that concerned me is that when I instructed that it be stopped, there were some people at BPL who were concerned that there might be some political reprisals because people in the Bahamas have become so accustomed to having politicians determine their fates. And I wanted to assure every single one of them that when they do what is right, there will be no reprisals because I want to ensure that they do what is right and that we make that utility a viable entity for the Bahamian people.
So you acknowledge that there were people who were afraid to disconnect?
They were afraid to disconnect the politicians. And my office is next door to a politician who owed a whole lot of money. And I remember being disconnected for a few $100s and that politician having hundreds of thousands of dollars outstanding. So I understand that. By the same token, as I said, I want to make sure that our people understand that there will be no reprisals. We don't operate in that way.
Okay.
And I don't operate in that way.
So now the next question is, are you all going to collect? Are these monies going to be collected? Or are you going to say, well, you've had these monies in arrears, let's have a clean slate and start over because there's hundreds of thousands of dollars outstanding.
Yes. We have a no-nonsense board. We have a chairman who's very, very serious. And they are going to collect. They required that the persons who are involved make certain payments. Those persons were supposed to make those payments by deadlines. And if they didn't make those payments, then they would have been disconnected. I am assured that that is what has happened. And I'm convinced that the board is going to do the right thing. They are absolutely committed to doing what is right. And they are just as appalled as I am at what was happening in our country.
And we have your word that going forward, whether it is Prime Minister, Minister, or whomever, if they are not up to date, they will be disconnected?
I gave one instruction, and that is that if by any chance Government House doesn't pay, and I'm sure that they're going to pay, we will not disconnect the Governor General.
You will not disconnect the Governor General. Okay. So
That is one instruction.
Okay, all right. So the GG gets a pass on this temporarily.
That is our house.
Yes,
That's
that is
people's
the
house.
people's house. Okay, and as the slogan said, it's the people's time. So we have a lot to talk about in relation to BPL as well.
Sure.
There's been a lot going on. This sort of just has been a microcosm of a lot of issues that are taking place in BPL. We're going to continue that discussion on the other side of this break. Stay with us.
This segment is sponsored by Percy's Island Game.
Play with Island Games. We making dreams come true. Play with Island Games. We paying more out to you. Don't mind the noise in the market. You getting cash in your pocket. 'Cause Island Games is spicy and spicy is tradition. So when you play, we putting Bahamians first. Guaranteed to pay. Island Games. We like them other jokers. We've been here from the start. From the bike to computer. Island Games, we can make your dreams come true. We playing with Island Games.
I'm free to live my life, yeah. Free to be me, yeah. The way I wanna be. Doing the things that I wanna do.
Yes, I'm living my life. Hey, BAF for life. Yes, I'm living my life. Hey, BAF for life.
For life, BAF has got you covered.
Yep. I got you.
I really appreciate you helping us out.
No problem, buddy.
Yeah, but thanks for helping us move.
Oh, I serious.
What happened, babe? What you mean?
Our news weekend has moved to 7:30.
You are watching On the Record. Welcome back. The Honorable Desmond Bannister, Minister of Works, is my guest. We're looking now at the future of BPL after the thefts of millions of dollars, the firing of the CEO, and now the do not disconnect list, which we were talking about in the previous segment. BPL under new management, new board. What are some of the major challenges across the board that you all are going to have to face into? Government have just announced that it is breaking ties with the management company in Power Secure, but that's one of a number of problems that you're facing at BPL.
BPL has had a huge generation issue throughout the country, throughout the years. As a result, we have, during the summertime, many of us have suffered. The critical issue for BPL now is to ensure that we can reliably provide power for Bahamian consumers. That is absolutely number one. We have to ensure that that happens first in New Providence, and then we have to ensure that in every single family island, we can provide power for Bahamian people. And we are committed to making that happen, sir.
Was there ever a real commitment from the government to work with Power Secure? I'm asking because from the very beginning, I sense that there was almost a contentious relationship between this administration and Power Secure.
I think Power Secure had difficulties. They had issues from before this government came into power. They had a number of problems. I think the first problem they faced was coming here and having two confidential documents that govern their relationship with the government and the Bahamian people. And because those documents were confidential, the business plan, for example, was confidential, nobody knew where they really wanted to go or what they wanted to achieve. In those circumstances, I believe that the previous board had a number of concerns. The Bahamian people had concerns, and Power Secure was not able to operate in the manner that they wanted to operate. So, for example, their business plan would have called for them to do certain things to ensure that the company had the funding, the financing that it needed. the former administration had some political issues, political concerns, which negated them being able to terminate staff, for example, in the way that Power Secure thought that they ought to have. They had a number of other political concerns that caused some difficulties. And so Power Secure, and I'm not making excuses for them, essentially sat in the Bahamas and could not operate in the way that they wanted to operate. When we came into power, we found that there were a number of shortcomings. We found that BPL was not operating the way that we wanted it to operate. We thought we knew, and we still know that we can do a better job.
Meaning Bahamian management, government,
the current administration, in putting a board in place that is fully prepared to do what has to be done to ensure that the Bahamian people have, first, reliable power, and secondly, power at a cost that makes sense for everybody, rather than the exorbitant costs that we're facing now. So we've put a board in place, as I indicated earlier, that is committed to achieving these goals. And it is a board that is highly knowledgeable. We have 2 outstanding engineers on that board, 2 exceptional accountants, and an attorney who's quite a bulldog. They have looked at the business plan. They've looked at the functioning of BPL, and they have determined that there is a better way to move ahead to do the things that we have to do. They've also determined that some of the things that Power Secure wanted to do were not necessary for us to have the kind of power we want in the time period we want to have it, and also to explore other areas that are important to us, such as renewables, such as green energy. Those issues, those things are important.
Now, the beginning of the end, I would say, in all of this was the firing of now former CEO Pamela Hill. Immediately following that, details of a salary and perks that really stirred up another controversy, and people, really vehemently opposed to the kinds of money she was making. But was she really given a fair shot at the end of the day, taking into consideration some of the things that you said, Power Secure not getting what they needed or not being able to execute it in some ways, but was she the scapegoat at the end of the day?
Not at all, not at all. She was given a very fair opportunity, but Power Secure had not and could not, in the circumstances, put their business plan into place. And the areas of our governance, corporate governance, that they ought to have been able to deal with and show proficiency with, they didn't. So, for example, a part of this scandal that you referred to earlier relates to a number of matters that I mentioned in Parliament, which relate to procurement. Putting procurement policies in place that make sense for BPL. Power Secure was unable to do it in the manner that they ought to have been able to do it, to ensure that some of the things that I spoke about did not happen. And that concerned me greatly. Coming in as minister, I gave certain instructions, and I wanted to see those instructions carried out in order that Power Secure, that BPL operated fairly. Those things did not happen. I saw a type of resistance that I did not expect, did not anticipate. And as a result of that, BPL, I believe, lost money that they ought not to have lost. That type of action by the CEO caused me grave concern.
One of the issues you also raised is speaks to former Minister Jerome Fitzgerald and Sunshine Holdings Chairman Sir Franklin Wilson benefiting from big contracts that were not sent to tender. Both have said that the comments were unfair.
Who said that?
Former Minister Fitzgerald, in his response to you, said basically, get over it, move on.
Well, first of all, I don't want to get into much with Fitzgerald. He is the one who threatened to sue me based on my comments. And as a result, I had to respond to him and let him know that if he wanted to sue me, I was going to be accountable. And he could have his way, and I would not resist the action in the courts.
So no action has been taken?
I wanted him to know that. No, he's changed his story now and indicates that he was essentially bluffing me with respect to the threat to sue. So I don't have a difficulty with that. What I do have a concern about is that when you have a procurement policy, you follow that policy. And so, for example, if you are bidding on providing a service to BPL, there's a process that says the bidding closes on a particular day. On that day when those tenders are open, you have the best bid. It is communicated to management that you have the best bid. Wouldn't you feel that you are entitled to be able to be given that contract? But what happened in the case with respect to the company that he is concerned about is that somebody else had the best bid, the bid was analyzed, and it was determined that that person's bid was the best. The period closed, the recommendations were made to management, and then 2 months later, the company that he now says he has nothing to do with sent a letter into BPL, and then a few months later, they were given the contract. And they've made millions of dollars on that contract. That is that is patently unfair. That is not what we expect in the Bahamas. And that is not how BPL is supposed to do business.
How do you safeguard and stop that from happening in the future?
There are clear procurement policies at BPL. Those policies need to be followed.
But are the policies not, though, up to the discretion of government?
There ought not to be a discretion in relation to carrying out those policies. They're clear. The CFO and a number of other people are involved in that process. It ought to be a politically blind process. The bids are sent in, the determinations are made, and what is best for BPL happens. So, for example, if you're bidding on something, fuel, for example, and we're all concerned about the prices of BPL is charging us, why would we go and accept a bid from somebody who offers a higher bid for fuel? Doesn't make sense.
But, Minister, this comes back to a very fundamental problem that we have in government. And when I say in government, this goes across administrations.
Absolutely.
That it only takes a call from a minister or somebody doing the minister's bidding to change all of this, whether it's the creation of the list or the approval of the list or do not disconnect list or this company is to receive this bid or this individual is to receive this contract. How do you stop that ultimately? By your own admission, employees and people in the government service are fearful of a reprisal or some kind of action from someone in government if they were to say no or simply follow a policy.
You know, the amazing and the wonderful thing is that we have a young generation of Bahamians who are not going to tolerate that. They are not going to put up with that kind of nonsense at all. And I spoke with one of your journalists this morning, and I knew the views of my children. This young generation are expecting fairness across the board. They're not going to tolerate any politicians or anybody else who are going to do nonsense. And so all of us are going to have to buckle up our belts, and we're going to have to live by the standards that are put in place. So I find it very interesting when you look at the procurement policies that are in place for BPL to see how they were abused. But I also find hope, a great deal of inspiration when I look at the quality of people we have in BPL and the fact that they are interested in doing what is right now, and that we have a board that is going to ensure that those policies are followed.
We are just about out of time on this segment, but I could not bring you on the show without asking you, as you sit in a very unique position, you're one of few in the cabinet who have served under an Ingram administration, who now serve under a Minister administration, and I have to ask you, what are the differences, what are some of the things that stand out to you that are different this time around in government with two different leaders, same party, but two different leaders who clearly have a different style?
Both of them are committed to the same goals. of accountability. And I think you've heard Prime Minister Minna speak to that early on in our administration. But as you've indicated, there are different styles of leadership. And the one good thing message that we're sending to young people is that your style of leadership is not what is going to determine your success. And so Prime Minister Minna has what you may call a more laid-back style. Prime Minister Ingram had a very, very hands-on style. I've enjoyed working with both of them. Both of them are accessible. Both of them are deeply concerned about Bahamian people. Both of them are highly committed to ensuring that what is best for our country and that the best of our country emerges through their efforts. And both of them are workaholics. Both of them give virtually all of their day and almost a good portion of their nights looking at issues that are important to this country. And so I think we're blessed to be able to compare the different leadership styles. I'm certainly blessed to be able to work in those two cabinets and to compare the two leaders, but also to see that both are being very effective, notwithstanding their leadership styles.
Good stuff, sir. Thank you very much, Minister. We're happy to have you on the show. We will certainly extend an invitation to you in the future to come on and speak with us some more. But certainly, thank you for coming on and shedding some light onto this this issue over this privilege list that no longer exists, according to you and others. And so we'll certainly be keeping an eye on that. And we're sure that, as time goes on, we'll have lots more to talk about. You've got a pretty big portfolio and lots of work to do, I'm sure.
Thank you so very much for having me on.
Good to have you, sir. We are right in the middle of our show. Our discussion tonight is privileges, the now forbidden list. Our guest for the first half, the Honourable Desmond Bannister, Minister of Works. We want to thank him. He has responsibility for utilities in the country. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. Coming up in the second half, we're going to be talking to Mr. Adrian Gibson. He's the MP for Long Island, also the chairman of the Water and Sewerage Corporation. Do not disconnect. We will be right back with more On the Record.
What do you believe?
Do you believe in energy? Do you believe in dreams?
Do you believe in passion?
Do you believe in family?
Do you believe in caring?
Do you believe in freedom?
Do you believe in imagination?
Do you believe in love?
Do you believe in community?
Do you believe in discovering?
Do you believe in music?
Do you believe in yourself?
Do you believe in living?
Believe in best.
Since our first episode, On the Record has had a profound effect on audiences, each week we push the boundaries of political debate, exploring the challenges of governance, the excitement of opposition politics, all against the backdrop of a majority young and oftentimes impatient electorate.
You are the expert here, yet you've done nothing. You appear to have no plan.
And from the time man has been in this world, men have been making mistakes.
God realized that's why he make hell.
Well, wait a minute, sir.
This is a benefit of being an independent juror. I don't have to sit there and squabble about who did what over the past 40, however many years.
We touch on the controversial, contentious, and current. Our goal, to leave audiences more informed to make better decisions. Be sure and join us each Thursday at 8 p.m., cable channel 212. I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. We hope to see you then.
Play with Island Games. We making dreams come true. Play with Island Games. We paying more out to you. Don't mind mind the noise in the market. You getting cash in your pocket. 'Cause Island Games is spicy and spicy is tradition. So when you play, we putting Bahamians first, guaranteed to pay. We like them other jokers. We've been here from the start, from the bike to computer. Island Games, we can make your dreams come true. We playing with Island Games.
Welcome back to the second half of On the Record. In this portion of the show, we have as our guest Adrian Gibson. He's a member of Parliament for Long Island. He's also chairman of the Water and Sewage Corporation. Mr. Gibson is also an attorney, teacher, and businessman who has also delved into the field of journalism. Quite an impressive CV. We're here now to talk about what's happening with Water and Sewage Corporation in the context of our topic tonight, privileges, the now forbidden list. First of all, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Jerome. Pleasure.
You have been quite busy in these few months since being appointed, but really what has happened over the past few, I guess over the past week or so, has really thrust the Water and Sewage Corporation into to the forefront. We're going to begin by talking about this list, this do not disconnect list. I want to talk about how this list could have possibly become public knowledge, and what would have sort of precipitated this now getting into the press and into the public space.
I think once the EPL list was released, there are always people at these corporations who, could release a list, particularly when it concerns politicians, because I always say politicians are the local celebrities. My view on the list is simple. There should exist no list in any corporation in this country where a politician or an elite has privileges not afforded the average everyday Bahamian. If I am to pay my water bill on time, or my light bill on time, or my phone bill on time, so should you. Okay, so if someone is able to carry a bill of $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, still get service and maintain that service over years, that is totally unfair to the person who's going to work and scrapping to meet their bill month over month, or at any opportunity that they could. So I have directed the general manager at the Water and Sewage Corporation to immediately dispense with that list. He claims the list is one of courtesy. He's told me this as one of courtesy, but it's also plainly one where disconnections don't happen if you owe a certain amount of funds. My view is the courtesy is extended to anyone, should be extended to all. So if a courtesy is not going to be extended to me, the average person, of a phone call or a letter or whatever, hey man, we can cut your water, then let's not extend it to anyone. Let's send everyone their bills. This is my view. Everyone gets their bills. And if you don't meet the payment, at a certain point you get disconnected. I have also directed that effective immediately, all persons in arrears, particularly excessive arrears, on that list should be notified and informed that they have 14 days to either bring their bills, bring the arrears current, bring their account current, or arrange a payment plan cooperation. Barring that, after the expiration of 14 days, they are to be disconnected.
A couple of things here. I know that there does exist this policy. I have experienced it myself. If you find that you have a leak and you have an absorbent amount, there's some things you can do. But I know that there exists this courtesy where you can agree to pay the amount over a period of time, and that has been in existence.
That is in existence. I encourage persons to go out there and get a payment plan, set up a payment plan with the corporation. But there are folks who simply don't do so, Jerome.
Mm-hmm.
There are persons who they sit down and they just
So this was a situation that was abused.
Abuse happens across the board, whether it's electricity, whether it's water, whether it's phone. Wherever there's an opportunity to abuse, there are persons who will do so.
Let me ask you this: prior to this list being published in the paper and going public, were you aware of this?
When the BPL list came out, the media and the public had been placing a lot of calls. So I asked, I think this would have been about 2 weeks ago, I asked them about this list. That hopefully corporation doesn't have any list of special list sort. And it was there and then that I was informed of this confidential list. I was advised that this list is to allow persons to get courtesy calls and courtesy letters and so on, and that not everyone on this list owes a balance. The reality is some people are owed a credit to the corporation, but there are still persons on the list who owe excessive balances, right? As would be reflected in any corporation. And, you know, reality tells me, common sense tells me that if someone owes an excessive balance and they're still being allowed to utilize the service, they must be considered to be special. They must be considered to be a person who cannot be disconnected. I have directed that whole concept changes. Okay, we talk about transparency and it being the people's time. So it's really the people's time, and it means fairness, and there's parity in the way we deal with the payment of bills to public corporations as well. Water and sewage, as long as I am there, will ensure that it collects outstanding arrears.
It would seem as if you're going to have a list of the privileged or people on the do not disconnect, it would seem places like homes for the elderly, right, or children's homes, or institutions that deal with the poor, downtrodden, or disaffected, or critical service would be on that list.
Jerome, I can't deny that. The reality is, on these lists, you would expect that some of these entities would be. But, as would have been seen with the BPL list, I think in many instances, some of these lists are used to protect society's elite, whomever they may be.
What's
and I think the problem with having these lists, like I said earlier, causes Bahamians, and it deepens the distrust for politicians, and it causes Bahamians to think that they are second-class citizens to an entitled few.
Imagine the angst and the disgust by people who, like myself, who have to pay. And if I don't pay, I'm disconnected. I have had that happen to me. Mm-hmm. But I'm just curious as to, was it just politicians on this list, or was it selected individuals or people close to politicians? I'm trying to figure out how did one get on the list?
Like I said about 2 weeks or so ago, when the media asked me about it, the list, I was advised, contains has MPs, former and present, politicians, generally, embassies, etc. Right? I don't know how someone gets on the list. I have not even asked. Okay? The only thing that I have been concerned with doing is ensuring that the list is scrapped, and that those persons on the list who owe excessive arrears understand that they must pay or get disconnected.
So when you're looking at now the financial sheets or the financial standings, these are recurring bad debts.
Right.
At any point, was there any alarm raised that we have such a large amount of existing or recurring bad debts? I mean, have you gotten to that point as a board yet?
The board will be looking at these matters. I can assure you of that. As you know, the board is still relatively new.
Right.
But once I had heard of the BPL list, once this was brought to my attention by general public and many phone calls from just about everybody you could think about, I quickly moved to ensure that that is put to an end, and that monies would be paid to better the balance sheet of the corporation. We could do it with that kind of money. You're talking about 220 or 221 people or entities on a list, confidential list. You're talking about some $175,000 in arrears, possibly a little more. At least at the point of June, when the list, when the last
$175,000 owing.
Right, owing at June when the last list was generated. But what I've said is, we want to move forward where everyone understands that you pay or you get disconnected. Okay, and it can't. You could understand people falling into arrears or falling behind on payments, but you can't simply not pay and get the service. I use Cable Bahamas as the example. you miss 2 payments, 2 months, they'll shut you off. Okay? They let you get away with the first, but the second one, they might think you're taking advantage. And so you got to put collections policies in place to ensure collections efficiency at the corporation. At present, we have about 16,000 inactive delinquent accounts, and I am advised less than 10,000 active delinquent accounts. With the 16,000 inactive delinquent accounts, these are the accounts that would have been inactive and delinquent for more than a year.
So no payments and no service.
Right, no service. I have directed that payments be sought. There's a collections process ongoing, and the corporation has a policy where, in the case of these accounts, you go to those homes and you remove the meter and the service line. Okay, and I've
some
directed
people are getting water.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're getting water clandestinely. So I've directed that service lines and the meters be removed in those instances where you have these grossly inactive and exorbitant accounts that are delinquent, and persons could be doing whatever funny business that they may want to do. Besides, when you have water meters out, the 16,000 accounts, you could utilize those water meters elsewhere. Okay? Person has switched the well water or whatever the case might be. With respect to the active delinquencies, I have urged and directed the general manager to move to ensuring collections and to working with persons to set up payment plans to address delinquency. You can't operate any entity, whether it's a corporation, a ministry, or whatever, a business, in the red. And so I think to improve the efficiency and the financial standing of the corporation, collections must happen.
Well, I'm sure that quite a few people will be getting visits if they've not started yet from the corporation to advise them on what the status is. We are looking into privileges, the now forbidden list. Our segment includes Adrian Gibson. Join us for more On the Record on the other side of this break.
Get the HD Cinemax experience anywhere, anytime, and any way you want with the Cinemax Go app, free to all Rev TV subscribers. To start watching on your laptop, sign up at cablebahamas.com/myaccount. Then visit cinemaxgoca.com. To watch Cinemax Go on your mobile device, just download the app from the Bahamas iOS App Store or Google Play Store. Launch the app, select Bahamas as your country, follow the prompts, choose Rev, and sign in with your Rev My Account credentials. Now, you can enjoy unlimited access to over 300 movies updated every month with Cinemax Go from Rev.
Rev, join the revolution.
Welcome back. This is the final segment of this episode. Our topic for tonight, privileges, the now forbidden list. There's been so much discussion within the media, across social media, and I guess in homes and businesses, water coolers everywhere about these lists and the individuals who have landed on that. Adrian, I'm sure this must be just sort of a microcosm of some of the issues that are facing the corporation when it comes to the collection of revenue. We just talked about the 16,000 delinquent accounts, but there are funds out there that are attached to these accounts that have not been collected.
Jerome, that's 16,000 inactive delinquent accounts. There are less than 10,000 active delinquent accounts.
So these 10,000 are the people
it's
who
an
are
addition, right?
And
It's an
still,
addition to the 16,000.
Any estimate on how much that might be? How much money is sitting out there?
I am getting to the bottom of that. We will want to have the financial data on what's sitting out there for the corporation in terms of delinquencies. And those arrears we will go after. It's unfortunate that this is the case across the board and all of the corporations for the most part. But I think the approach and the plan we have to adopt has to somewhat mirror Cable Bahamas is, where you adopt corporate approach to bill payment, where yes, there's consideration for that month or so where you may not be able to meet that bill. Don't think that you could just let a bill go on and on and on without payment.
But my caution there is that cable is a luxury.
Yes.
You don't have to have cable television. You don't have to have internet. But you need water.
Yes.
Can you rightly apply the same principles to such an essential service?
Well, here's the thing. With water, you pay per quarter
Mm-hmm.
every 3 months. So you missed 1 quarter. I don't expect that you would miss 2 or 3 quarters without
You're almost
a single,
into a year now.
Right, without a
Mhm.
single payment. So you're almost into a year. So when I speak about a plan, I'm talking about a collections plan, a plan for efficiency. You got 3 months here, 3 months there. You missed the first 3 months, okay. You missed the second 3 months, then people start to really wonder, well, hold on.
Half a year now.
You see?
Mhm.
And it depends on your usage amount as well. But I would be encouraging folks. I would encourage folks to come in and pay their bills, or at least pay on the bill a respectable amount so that the service could continue. Because I don't want to see Bahamians disconnected. Water is an amenity we all should have. But I also understand that a corporation is an entity that must function and it needs money to function.
Any plans in the works or any consideration to privatizing?
I'm sure that privatization is a consideration of the government. One that's not entirely fleshed out as yet, but I'm certain that it will be something to be discussed.
Would it be, how do I put this politely? Would it be wise to consider that at this point when you look at the BPL model and what has just happened relative to that and the recent announcement about the separation there? Would it be wise to even consider that at this point?
Well, you know that BPL wasn't really privatized.
Right.
They had a management agreement.
Okay, which was new. Right.
And so privatization, almost like what happened with, well, was really what happened with BTC. BPL is not privatized. BEC really is still owned by the government of Bahamas. If you are talking about a true privatization model, you either would sell an entity outright or sell shares in an entity, whether to the public or to some other entity, and you go on some kind of partnership maybe. I think that could be good in many of these government corporations. My personal view is that the government ought not be carrying corporations at this point. We must move away from corporations.
But how do you justify in the instance where you say, let's say a Duncantown, Ragged Island,
Right.
you've got 60 residents, you've got to provide water to those people in the far-flung islands, which is not going to be profitable by any stretch of the imagination, but it is an essential service.
And I think this is why some corporations, the government wishes to keep its hands in. Because we have these far-flung islands, because we have islands where there aren't many people residing in maybe in a whole island.
Yeah.
And if you look at it in a strictly business sense, it wouldn't make sense to go in. The government has an obligation to its people. And I think the reason government keeps its hand in these corporations is to ensure that these entities would go and establish the infrastructure, these places, so these residents of your Ragged Island would be afforded an opportunity to have some of the same amenities that Nassau would have.
There's been some discussion when it comes to electricity about moving into more energy efficient models, and even in some places the installation of solar, maybe even windmills. Any similar discussion or thought when it comes to water, the extraction, purification, manufacturing of water?
I've read some communications with respect to alternative energy. Those are matters that would be discussed in time with the board. But But I'm certain that once we come to the point where we are sure and we've established a position.
But do you agree it is time, though, for us to begin to look at some alternatives? I mean,
Definitely.
you cannot consider
No question.
the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result.
No question. The current model that we have with respect to electricity and alternative energy, outlook on alternative energy, does not embrace it to the point that we ought to have embraced it. You got countries that are using power generated from windmills and hydropower and solar power.
And if you consider a key in the middle
power,
of the Bahamas with
exactly.
sea breeze blowing across it
Right.
constantly and sun 7 days a week.
And we have some heavy currents in the Bahamas where we could generate that hydroelectricity. We have the sun beaming down on us every day, really. Solar energy. I see no reason why we ought not to encourage mass alternative energy, including government corporations and offices adopting it and leading the charge. Because like I said, there are many countries in the world who have successfully downsized or moved away from their use of regular fuel-driven energy resources or options.
At the beginning of this term of the government, you would have stepped forward and said you were hoping for a cabinet position. You're now chairman of a corporation. You happy with that?
Well, you serve from where you are. You blossom and you grow from where you are planted. And at this point, I'll grow from where I'm planted. I'm certain that in time to come, other opportunities will likely present themselves, and you just have to ready yourself for when it happens.
So 1 year from now, if we sit here and have this discussion, what would you like to have accomplished at the corporation a year from now?
I would hope to have expanded the means throughout various islands, to have ensured and bettered collection efficiency, customer service, to have taken the corporation to a point of regulation by IRCA, to ensure that the human resources matters at the corporation are effectively resolved, and that there aren't some of the labor issues that may exist. Really, you just want the corporation to function more on a corporate business model, and so to bring policies to ensure that it operates at that standard would be key. Efficiency, key. I believe that your staff makes you who you are. So ensuring that staff morale on a high is key as well.
Very important. I want to talk a little bit about your role as an MP. I mean, I got you here now, so we're going to talk about it. Just yesterday, prior to the show, you would have given your contribution in the House of Assembly and spoken to something that is of grave concern to you in your constituency of Long Island and what you call the excessive amount of gaming houses. Why was that so important for you to address in the House of Assembly?
Well, Jerome, beyond that, I just want to say that we also have some other challenges, infrastructural.
Yeah, I don't get to that. I'm talking about the gaming houses. Yeah,
I want to say there's a desperate need for that airport, but we'll come to that.
Yeah.
With respect to the gaming houses, you can see the societal issues that have arisen as a result of their presence. You're talking about kids not going to school with lunch. You're talking about persons spending their entire paycheck in a gambling house, maybe at a weekend, families suffering from it. Because you have about 3,000 people in Long Island and this great proliferation of gambling houses,
15
to 20.
Wow.
The impact of that on a small society could be very obvious and very harmful. And on businesses, local businesses are complaining, business owners and operators are complaining to me as well. You see the bank speaking about, the last bank there, Royal Bank really, speaking about withdrawing. And one of the bases, you speak off the record, they say one of the bases, for not Royal Bank, but banks in general, possibly withdrawing is the proliferation of number houses where persons don't have resources to come and get the loans.
I can put money on an account in National. You can draw it off.
Exactly what you sent.
Yes.
So you send me 20, I get 20.
Yeah.
The banks, on the other hand, you send 20, they have to take transaction fees. You have to be in a position financially making a good salary to get a loan.
How do we fix? We've now allowed the proverbial horse out the gate to run wild.
Right.
How do we fix? What's your suggestion?
Well, I think we have to curtail the number of gaming houses in Long Island or throughout the islands. Yeah. You know, my view is that a small number of persons benefit from the gambling houses anyway. I think it would be a good idea to move towards a national lottery.
And
in
shut
the greater
down some
good.
of the houses?
And shut down some of the number houses.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you this. When you look at a national lottery, let's say you have 52 draws per year, a draw per week. You're talking about possibly creating 52 millionaires. You're talking about generating about 10 million per week. And even with the monies paid out, you're probably putting 8 million aside. You can put it into a sovereign fund, or for that matter, use a percentage of that for capital works throughout the
So when you talk about
archipelago.
the national lottery, that's money that will come back to the people.
Come back to the people.
Okay. Finally, because we're running out of time, I want to get this in. One of the issues you spoke to is the need for that airport, an international airport in Long Island. What has been the hold up? Are there any plans in the works in the immediate future for that airport?
I can't really say what the hold up has been over the years, because we would have been promised an international airport for more than a decade now, a brand new international airport. What is hurting Long Island is a lack of accessibility. People cannot get in and out easily. So when folks finish school, they leave. What the airport does is it immediately spurs the economy. You're talking about new businesses, you're talking about people returning home. You know, that would be, I think, the reason for Long Island's restoration. Many of the challenges we face, joblessness, unemployment, and would be resolved.
In your remarks, you even spoke to the willingness for a public-private partnership to make this happen.
Absolutely.
So if you've got a I mean, I know my own personal experience. Long Island has produced some of the best and brightest and people with money.
That's right.
Who are willing to help. What is sort of preventing that from happening?
If the government would facilitate this, and we're exploring all the options. I have laid some options out, right? And I would hope to speak to the Minister of Finance a little more on this. But I can guarantee you, if there's a public offering or public-private partnership, Long Islanders, within 1 week, would oversubscribe. You and I know this.
No, personal experience.
Oh, yes.
I know.
Much like the APD offering, I was one of the persons who bought into that. There were many others. They were oversubscribed. I see such an offering to get this Long Island airport going, being oversubscribed immediately. We Long Islanders want to see the best for Long Island. Long Islanders want to see Long Island recapture the glory that once had, the magic. And we want to see infrastructural development, from roads, the proper healthcare in Long Island. I've been nudging my colleagues in government to ensure that happens. As you know, there's only limited water supply in Long Island. We have to get water throughout Long Island. It was a promise of our party prior to winning the government, and I am hopeful that we will make that happen.
Well, I am sure that you will be relentless in your pursuits. You've just given from the just sort of some insight into the presentations you've made in Parliament, that you will be pushing for these things, and we certainly will be watching to see if your government responds to the needs of people who, by no stretch of the imagination, have always been loyal to your party. So we'll see what happens. Adrian, thank you so very much.
My pleasure.
For coming on. Best of luck to you. We'll certainly be keeping an eye on what's happening with the Water and Sewage Corporation, and certainly with Long Island.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Well, folks, we hope that you have enjoyed our show tonight. Special thanks to Minister Desmond Bannister, Water and Sewage Corporation Chairman Adrian Gibson, my producer, technical staff, and of course you, the audience, for watching week after week. Be sure and join us for more On the Record next week, same place, same time. Once again, I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. We'll see you next week.